Hello, and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. You know, I tend to be a collector of instruments, and sometimes I pick up something just because I think it'll be fun or I can show something from it. So what I did was I picked up this. I have several of them, different colors. It is made exactly like a recorder. So I want to show you something about it because I think it's fascinating. It has all the same parts that a recorder would have. If I hold it like this so you can see it, the mouthpiece is going to be right here. If I tip it up like that, you can see some white on it. That white is a block. I'm going to turn it this way. Now I have to look at the monitor myself. This is the block. Just like a real recorder has a block, this has a block too. And it's a part of the mouthpiece. It is a little different color than the mouthpiece, but it's a part of it. And that's the way most recorders, but not all recorders, are built. The block is a little bit different color. Now you notice there's a tone hole in the back. This tone hole is a thumb hole that recorders have. They all have it. The penny whistles don't, the sassotos don't, but they have this. And when I turn it, again, there's this little spot here. That's the labium. Every recorder has a labium. Now let me take and show you a regular recorder. If I put it, yeah, that's perfect. They both have that block. The block here is a part of the mouthpiece. It's very smooth, but it is a little different piece. I can feel the ridge when I put my hand on it. The thumb hole is right here. And every recorder has it. You'll notice there's a little, it looks like there's a little mark above that, above the thumb hole. That's a little B. Usually it doesn't come out, but we've got such a close range here that you can see it. And it is a B, although it doesn't show up that clearly. That means that this is a Baroque instrument. And a Baroque instrument, which is what most people play for recorders, is a little bit, the fingering pattern is a little bit different than the regular recorder. And it's a little bit more complicated, but not much. And the tone is a little bit more accurate. And they call it a Baroque. That little B gives you the sign that it's a Baroque. Now, the front, the tone holes are all in the front. Whoops, I gotta get this in the right position so you can see it. It mimics, this little thing mimics everything that this recorder does. Now, does it play? That's the next thing. Well, I have a surprise. Now, I'm not going to be able to play much on it. It does play. It's very hard to get your fingers in the right spot because it's very tiny. So let's try this. And I have to have the thumb hole covered in the back, just like I would if it was a real recorder. Took me a little while to get the right amount of air in it, but you can see that it does play. Now they come in red, yellow, and green. They all play, some of them play a little bit better than others, but these are the other two colors that they come in. It cost me $1 at a dollar store, but it's worth it. And now I have another group here. And I'll show you the green one. It shows you more how the recorder is actually made. It's going to be hard to see, and I'm not sure if you can pick it up, and that's all right if you can't. But here it is. Whoops, I'll put it over here. And you can see this is the Fipple mouthpiece. If I twist it up, you can see like there's an indentation in there. I can put my finger in there, and that's where the block is. I'll keep it in front of the screen, the white screen, and you can see that's where the block is. This is the mouthpiece right here. Now the block, it's a circular piece of plastic. It goes around the whole area of the instrument. And the thing is, it's supposed to aim the air so it goes down in front of the instrument and goes out of the labium, which is right here. Now, I took a paper clip and I straightened it out. If I put my paper clip here, I hope this works, because I was able to do it before. Let me try it from this angle. Maybe it'll be better. Do you see that? I have got the paper clip in the instrument. I put it in the labium, and it goes up above the mouthpiece. It's up here. The top of it is up here. Whoops. Now you can see it better. I put the paper clip in the labium, and I put it up here, and I was able to get it through. Why? Because there's a little area that is not covered by the block, and that area is where the air goes. When you blow into an instrument, where does the air go? It doesn't just shoot down. It has to be directed down. So it goes, and it's not allowed to go everywhere because that block prevents it from going everywhere. But it does allow it to go down because of the fact there's a little place here that's not covered by the block. It will, and here I put it in again, the air will go down that little tiny opening, and where's the labium? Right in front. Right in front. And I'll pull that out. So these don't play as well as the other ones that I showed you. But at any rate, this gives you an idea of how the instruments are made. There's a little block. There's a circular area in that block which cuts off the airflow so it only goes in one direction, and then it goes out the labium. And then when you play an instrument, it does have a squeal to it. I don't know if I can get any notes on it or not. I think I'll try it just to see. Not really. That's partly because there's no tone hole in the back. But at any rate, it does show you some of the basic construction of what recorders are. There's a little thing this is called a fipple mouthpiece. The block is in it, cutting off the air so it only goes down in a certain way, and then it goes out of the labium. If that makes any sense. It does squeal. These are just party little things. I mean, it's not important, but it does show you some construction. I'm not going to pull a regular recorder up for you to see it. They also come in blue and yellow. So it is interesting. Sometimes I'll bring in an instrument that's a toy instrument because it will be constructed in such a way that you can see what the instrument is like. And you can see how it's built. The recorder is a relatively simple instrument, but at the same time, if it has all the parts to it so you can actually play a few notes, why not show that? Because it'll show you a little bit more as to how these instruments are constructed. I can remember once, I was watching television, and there was an orchestra playing, and for one number, and they had a blast doing it, they all played toy instruments. And they played a whole song, and it was just toy instruments. And of course, you're limited in how much you can play. They're not real instruments, but they do play some. And they were having a blast with it. They thought it was just so funny. And it sounded pretty good. So sometimes you can learn a lot from a toy. And when you can, I tend to bring them in. Now, I'm going to play a piece, and we're going to see it up on here. I wrote this yesterday, and why I wrote it, when I write music for the show, I write it to teach a specific thing. And what I wanted to do is focus on these two high Ds right here. And this keeps getting repeated. Here's an E, couple of E's, D's, D's, E, because of the fingering pattern. The fingering pattern for a D and an E is different than it is on some of the other woodwind instruments. There's a lot of similarity between the instruments, so that you can transfer what you know about fingerings from one instrument to another. But this is just a simple song that I wrote, emphasizing the D's, and I'm going to show you how you finger those, because it is a little different than other instruments. Here's another D, and then of course you have other notes here. So I'm going to play this. It's in 4/4 time. I don't have any sharps or flats. It's just 4/4 time. A quarter note, it gets one beat. The 4/4 time means that there's 4 beats to a measure, and that the quarter note, that 4 stands for quarter, gets one beat. So let me play it, and I'll play it off my copy here, and see if you can follow along, and then I'll show you about the fingerings. That's the whole song. So when I go, so let me point out, this is the 2 Ds, and you have 2 Ds, you have 2 Es. You play that D with one finger only. This middle finger of the left hand is the only finger that's down on the key. So what holds the instrument in place? No fingers. So what happens is your mouth helps to balance it, and you will put your right hand finger down, and the purpose of putting the right hand finger down is so that that balances. And then and see the thumb is off too. I had to pull the thumb off to get that D. So then I want to play that B, which follows that D. How do I finger that? All right, I go from D, and I switch quickly so it doesn't lose its balance, and I put my thumb on the thumb hole. I switch this finger up, the middle finger. I put the first finger down, so it's like this, whoops, this. Now, usually 2 notes isn't a big deal, but this is kind of hard to do, because one thing, that D has nothing except for one finger down, and then everything else that's down is just to balance it, not to play. And then when you switch to a B, you've got to do 2 things. That B has got to go, this forefinger here has got to go down at the same time that this one is coming up. You see, you have to do it that way. If you don't do it exactly right, and the timing is off in terms of when you pick one up and you put one down, you're going to get extra notes. And you don't want that. You want a clear D to B. So the B is when the index finger is down and the thumb hole is covered. The D is, nothing is covered except for this middle finger. So it's this, and then I put an A down, just one finger. Now remember that when you play notes, you may have part of the fingers already down for a note because you played a previous note that used those fingers. Don't pick the fingers up and put them down again. If you're going to need them for another note, just keep them there. I've seen students do this. They will go from E to a B, and then when they play an A, they think they have to pick everything up and start again. You don't have to. If your fingers are already down for the next note, just leave them there. When I play the B and the A and the G, I don't have to lift the fingers up. When I want an A, I don't have to lift this up and put the 2 down. This is already down. Just add that note. Keep the note finger there that you need to use. When I play the G, these 2 are already down. Keep them down and just add that extra note. Now this E, when I get to this E, the high E is played like the low E, except you have to half hold the tone in the back. So if I play a low E, B, A, G, F, E, that's the E, and then I've got my thumb hole covered, that's going to give me a low E. Do I want a high E? Well, I do, because that's what I wrote. So I pull the thumb down, so it's not completely off, it's half off. It's called half holing. So you have half an area there isn't covered. And so what do you get? That's half holing, and it's going to bounce you up an octave. And so for a number of notes, that's how you get the octave. You just pull the thumb down and you half hole it. That's what it's called. So when I'm playing this, I go from that D, I'm going to just finger it for you, to the B, and then it goes to an A and a G, and then back to the A, and then when I play the E, I already have these two fingers down. I add that finger, add this finger, that gives me the E, and I pull that thumb down, and that puts me right into an octave situation. So let me try it again. Now I want to mention this. 2 low Ds, 2 high Ds. That's an octave range. How do you get it? Well, if you remember what we've taught you, B, A, G, F, E, D. And to get that high D, you have to lift everything up except this, what I showed you before, that middle finger. Now, another thing I'm doing to help for balance is I've got my right thumb on the back of the instrument. It doesn't matter too much where I put it. It's not playing a note, but it has to be in this position. So when I cake it, I wished I could show you 2 sides at the same time, but it's impossible. The low D, almost everything is covered except these 2 low notes here. You have the low D, and for the high D, everything comes up, and you have, even the thumb comes up. So low D, high D is just this one note. But I'm not dropping the instrument. The mouth is going to help to balance it, and the thumb on the right hand, which is going to stay where it is, it's not playing anything, but it will help to support the instrument in place. And it's not unusual for you to find a finger down here that's also attached. It's not going to be playing because you've got all of these notes here that are not being used. You have your high D, this is the only note on it, but these aren't going to be playing because you don't have any fingers on it. So therefore, you can put 1 or 2 fingers here and the thumb, and you're not going to change the note any. Now, this is the purpose that I wrote the music for. I like to write things that you need to know in fingerings. I like to write them in a musical form, like in a song. It's much easier. It's a lot more fun to play it. It's an actual song that you can play with it. But it's going to emphasize all the way through. It's going to emphasize what the fingering is, and you get a song out of it at the same time. What if I wanted to play it fast? Well, I could. Well, just watch the music and listen as I play, and I'm just going to speed it up a bit. And I made that fourth note, this would be the end. Now, if I actually was doing this as a solo, I would probably put a retard in this, and it would slow it down at the end, and then you get those 2 lines, and that shows you that that's the end of the song. So that's we don't have too much time left, so I was going to do another song, but won't have time for it. So when you're practicing, you practice scales. I hope you'll be practicing your scales. A scale is just a pattern of notes that goes up and down. I could go down to up or up to down. It doesn't matter. You can start off in different notes. You get different keys. I usually write in the key of G, so when I do that, the D happens to be the lowest note because there is quite a finger stretch for that C. And some people, if you're elderly or if you have problems with your hands or if you're young and your hands haven't grown, you'll have problems getting that C. Sometimes it's not the highest note of an instrument that's the hardest to get. Sometimes it's the lowest note that's the hardest to get. So what you would do when you were practicing it, you would start off very slow. If I were teaching you, I would make sure that you knew the fingerings, the correct fingerings, and then I would go. So there you have the whole song with all of the fingerings that you need to do that. So the highest note is going to be the E, and the lowest note is going to be the D. Remember the fingering pattern, B, A, G, F, E, D. Now in the last show, I showed you that little mark on the back of the instrument, of one of the instruments. I don't know if it's showing much here. Right on top, that's a B, and it means that the instrument is a Baroque instrument. So when you play the F, you add an extra finger instead of. It makes it a little deeper tone and a little bit more accurate. So the Baroque instruments are almost the same as a regular recorder. They are a regular recorder, but the fingering pattern is just a tiny bit different than the German model, in which you don't have to put that down. So a little bit more complicated, but not bad. So you can play all kinds of music on a recorder. You just have to know how to finger it, how to place your fingers. You curve your fingers, you don't play flat, and you make sure that these tone holes are covered. And if you don't need to use the tone holes, you keep your fingers fairly close by, because as you're jumping around playing different notes, you're going to have to use these fingers, and you're going to need to have them quickly be able to hit the right chords at the right time. And then your left hand is going to go on the top, and the bottom hand is going to go on the right hand is going to go on the bottom, and you're going to tongue, for the most part, tongue your notes by kind of pronouncing ta or T whenever you hit a note. And we've gone into that before, but I will be going into it again, of course. So I will close it here. We don't have much time left. I'll close it here. We'll be doing something else next time. Please join me then.